Welcome, folks. Kenn Rashad, HBCU Sports Live. It's been a minute. It's been a while, but we're back. And I guess you shouldn't be surprised given all the news that's developed over the past, 2, 3 days or so, especially over the past week. As JSU's president said, one of the worst kept secrets to probably ever be revealed is finally out. And Deion Primetime Sanders is officially the new head football coach at Jackson State University. The official announcement was held earlier today. We've lamented about it. We've talked about it. We all speculated over the possibilities of what could happen, what might happen, and all of that remains to be seen at this point. But it is finally here. And as you all know, we were the first to break that story on Thursday, and we'll tell you about the details that went into that. It's been absolutely crazy. But before we go into the show, by all means, feel free to follow us on the social media platforms. We're located on Twitter at HBCU Sports, on Facebook at Real HBCU Sports, and on Instagram, IG at HBCU_sports. By all means, feel free to follow us on our YouTube account. This video will obviously be posted there a little later. And while you're at it, and by all means, we'll get into this. If you have a moment, please feel free to donate to help our cause here at HBCU Sports. You can visit us, make a donation at hbcusports.com/donate. And if you will, feel free to make a generous donation because obviously we had some infrastructure problems, and that was also revealed on Thursday. So joining me is my special guest, Kendrick Marshall, different Ken. Kendrick was, and I want to make this clear, there were a lot of people on Twitter who, and I appreciate the well wishes and so forth, who took the time to, congratulate us on, breaking the story and so forth. And I need to make this perfectly clear right now. This would not have been possible had it not been for my partner in crime, Kendrick, because, we went back and forth on this for days. He had his own unique individuals for sourcing. I had mine. We talked, and it was constantly night and day, constant texting and tweets and just all kinds of stuff. So, Kendrick, let me take the time personally to thank you for not only the work that you've done on this story, but just in what you've done for HBCU Sports, man. It's been well over 10 years. We had that conversation not too long ago, but thank you for taking a few minutes to help me and to help HBCU Sports get to where it is right now. So let's get into the details about Deion Primetime Sanders, and he has made it clear already on Twitter that he wants to be known as Coach Prime and that he won't respond to any other name. So we've got the graphic here. Coach Prime arrives at Jackson State. So Kendrick, obviously the cat's out the bag. Your thoughts about Deion Sanders being the new head coach at Jackson State?
Kenn Rashad, do you believe?
Yeah, I believe. I believe in a lot of things.
Like I said, man, this is, if you're a J-State alum, a fan, some type of connection with the university, this is a very exciting and landmark day for the football program to have a person like Deion Sanders with his background and with his charisma and persona to be tied to the school. It now gives the school a different kind of vibe, a different kind of credibility, a different kind of spotlight that the school hadn't had in a very, very long time. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. It could result in championships. It could flame out in the year. We don't know. But whatever's going to happen, I can't wait to see it.
So I've been meaning to ask you this. Now, was that that comment you made? Was that was that Kendrick Marshall, the journalist, the objective journalist, or was that Kendrick Marshall, the JSU fan and alum?
You want to put me on the spot?
You know what? Center your camera. You're a little bit off center. We want to get all of you. Center just a little bit. Yeah, a little more. All right, go ahead. That's good enough.
Yeah, I would have to admit, being a J-State alum, my heart was warmed to see Deion Sanders on stage wearing my school colors.
Your heart was warmed?
Yeah, I had warm and fuzzies on the inside, knowing that one of the greatest football players of all time was going to coach my school.
So
I mean, you have to think about it.
So when initially, I mean, this came out some time ago, and about the possibility of him being a candidate when John Hendrick was removed was terminated as head coach, or some people say he stepped down, but that's fine. And immediately, almost like the next day, Deion Sanders' name surfaces as a possible candidate. So go back then when that initially happened. Did you think that was a possibility?
No, I didn't. Honestly, didn't. Because you hear a lot of things, hear a lot of rumors. Like, you have people in certain circles who just throw names out there just because they want to stir something up or want to just create conversation. I'm thinking, like, Deion Sanders, why would he want to come coach in the SWAC? That makes no sense at all. Like, he got a television job. He can probably pick and choose where he wants to coach and spend his time. And J-State wasn't one of the places I thought he would end up.
So it appears that someone, took the time to kind of connect the dots. And so when you think about how this all evolved, so you go back, I guess, maybe to late May, when it was revealed that Deion Sanders had received his undergraduate degree from Tougaloo. And, it was, a celebratory moment. And, everybody was happy for him. He's an HBCU graduate, despite being known for the time that he stayed at Florida State. And then all of a sudden, his name comes up as a possible candidate for the Jackson State job. And then all of a sudden, someone, and I forgot who it was on Twitter, there may have been several people who made the comment, but all of a sudden they started putting two and two together saying, well, if Deion Sanders really had dreams of being a head coach, and he said this, I guess, some time ago with Dan Patrick on his show about his aspirations of becoming a collegiate head coach, I guess part of the plan was, if you're going to do that, you're going to obviously have to have an undergraduate degree. He gets the degree from Tougaloo in Mississippi, of all places, and then happens to end up the head coaching job at Jackson State. So it does make me wonder, from the time that the news came out that he first was a candidate, the first time go around, it makes you wonder what kind of conversation, if anything, he had maybe with Ashley Robinson, who's the athletic director at Jackson State. Do you have any idea as to what kind of conversations that they may have had, other than the pictures that we saw on Twitter with I Believe?
I mean, if they were able to secure Deion Sanders, it didn't happen over the weekend. This had to be something that was cultivated over months in advance before this ever happened. And Ashley Robinson reached out to Deion Sanders. I know his team that he coaches now in Texas, Trinity Christian, they actually came to Jackson to play a football game. And it was there where you start to hear more about Jackson State's involvement in trying to secure Deion Sanders, try to gauge his interest. And then after that, more momentum started to surface surrounding his possible candidacy. And I think what was one of the red flags to that was them moving on from John Hendrick when they did. Because, as you know, there is no football right now in the SWAC because of the cancellation due to COVID. And so football season, at least practice-wise, won't begin until later on this winter. And so JSU didn't have to make a decision about a football coach because Hendrick's contract expires in December. And when they let him go a month ago, you're like, why are they letting this guy go when they don't have to? And then you start to put two and two together. And they're going after something bigger than just a T.C. Taylor or somebody of that ilk to fill in for this job.
Excellent point. Yeah, didn't even think about it that way. Comments coming in. Natalie Hicks, thank you for taking the time to listen. It's going to put butts in the seats. Revenue, okay, but does this equate to great coaching for the football team? That's the bottom line. So Kendrick, that's obviously probably the first and foremost question that pretty much comes on the mind of everyone who's been kind of following the situation. Obviously, Deion Sanders, Hall of Famer, NFL, superb athlete, two-sport athlete, excelled in football and in baseball. Coach, the offensive coordinator right now, Trinity Christian High School. His son plays for the team who has, as of now, committed to Florida Atlantic, and that too is another question about whether or not he might change that commitment and go to Jackson State. But talk a minute about the fact that Jackson State, for the most part, is kind of taking a chance on their now head coach who has zero coaching experience at the college level. Talk about the risks associated with that. Now, granted, Natalie indicated, obviously, there's a lot of buzz. We're talking about it right now. He's going to be on Good Morning America, I believe, tomorrow morning. Talk about his inexperience as it relates to coaching at the collegiate level.
Yeah, that's one of the big concerns I have about Deion Sanders coming in. Like, as I wrote in my column today, there's going to be a lot of questions about how committed he's going to be to the process of recruiting and building the program and building the culture, and that week in, week out, day in, day out grind that it takes to be a college football coach, especially at the SWAC level, where you don't have access to a lot of things that coaches at the Division I level have at the BCS level or the G5 level. And we know Deion has a lot of connections within football, particularly at the NFL level, and that might play well for Jackson State in terms of them acquiring a coach who has NFL playing experience, maybe a little bit of assistant experience, to try to help him along in this process. But what has to be hopeful if you're a Jackson State observer is that he was willing to start out as a high school coach first in some capacity before evolving to wanting to be a head coach. He started out at Trinity Christian, as we know, as on defense first, then switched offensive coordinator, where his son plays quarterback there. So he spent the time working on his craft, teaching, and little to be known, he actually coached the Under Armour All-American team last year. So to get that gig says a lot about his work ethic and his ability to reach young people in the coach football in a way where top highly recruited prospects are working under him.
So it appears that just since this morning, and you and I talked about this, one of the things that he talked about during the press conference, which in itself, again, he was typical prime time. He to be quite honest with you, he did everything that one would expect for, with Prime being Prime. But I will give him credit, because I'll be honest with you. I there's still a part of me that wonders why J-State made this move. I get what comes with it. I understand there's a lot of excitement there. And I will even give Sanders credit. This morning, he hit all the right notes. You can tell he did his research. You can tell, he seemed to be committed to the gig. And like I said, it's an exciting time at Jackson State. I'm actually happy for the folks at Jackson State. And to be quite honest with you, as someone who is a product of the SWAC and went to Grambling, I really do hope that the fortunes of Jackson State changes. I really do. But I just don't know if this is the guy. I have made the comment that he is a prima donna. There's a part of me that believes that, okay, it's all good now, but when the honeymoon's over and it's time for kickoff, and it's time to get to work, the honeymoon may not be what, it'll be over quickly. And then at some point, he's going to have to produce receipts. Because I will say this, and I received text messages in some capacity, a combination of text messages, direct messages on social media from current coaches. And I'm talking head coaches, assistant coaches, in which one text was like, I can't wait to get to that mother, and so clearly, the one consistent thing was the coaches clearly aren't intimidated by Deion Sanders coming into the SWAC. As if anything, it appears just based upon the few people that I've communicated with, they appear to be motivated and they can't wait for that moment to come. So, I mean, it's hard to predict, but I mean, with respect to my concerns, in that he may not necessarily be the right person, simply for the fact that given JSU's track history in hiring coaches, the last 4 selections, I mean, it's safe to say, they've all lasted for about an average of 2 years. And, let me make this clear. There's a part of me that thinks if he's wildly successful, then he's going to show the coaching where he can coach. And someone, maybe one of the Power 5 institutions who've got boatloads of money, will pay him what they think he's worth, and he'll leave. And if things don't pan out like J-State folks hope that it will, in 2 years they may say, sorry, Prime, but prime time's over. You got to go. And I guess there's a part of me that thinks no matter what, in 2 years, J-State will be right back to square one looking for a head coach. Is that unfounded? Is there anything wrong with that? Correct me if I'm wrong. What am I missing?
I think, judging by the way they've handled the last 4 coaches before Deion Sanders, that's very possible that he could not be the head coach in 2023, because the pressure to win at J-State is unlike at any other place in the SWAC. Even at Grambling, where they've won a lot, even at Southern, where they've won a lot, the fan base expects to go undefeated. They expect to compete for the East title. They expect to win the SWAC championship. And the frustration now, it's been 6 years since they even played for the championship. And so there's going to be more pressure on whoever the coach would be, especially Deion Sanders now, to immediately have some results. And you were talking about earlier about why the school decided to make a move on Deion Sanders. It's because of that. It's because they had to make a splash. The last 3 coaches were not splashers. They were either inexperienced, too far removed from the game, or just did not understand this current juncture that we're in college football recruiting-wise, especially in the SWAC. And they were not just prepared for the type of scrutiny that coaching JSU brings. And so I think Deion Sanders, with his background, playing for the Dallas Cowboys, playing for the New York Yankees, playing in the World Series, playing in the Super Bowl, playing in all these different pressurized atmospheres and environments, will help him make that adjustment to being in the position he's in right now. And I think in 2 years, he may have turned the program around, or in 2 years, it may be on the same plane that it is now. But early on, it looks like this fan base and all the alums and the boosters will be behind him 100%, unlike they were with the previous coaches that the school has had.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back. Let's go back to Thursday, if you will. And folks, by all means, feel free to send your comments in. We'd love to get your comments on and see what you think about the new hire at Jackson State, Prime Time. Coach Prime, as he has indicated he wants to be called. Deion Sanders is the new head coach at Jackson State. Let's go back to Thursday and what we experienced when we had all we needed to go ahead and report that Jackson State was indeed going to hire Deion Sanders. And it was actually you that wanted to report it on Wednesday night. And if you recall, or Wednesday afternoon, the day before, when we thought we had it, but there was one little piece of information that I wanted to wait for, which we got early Thursday morning, and we did. But for those of you who don't know, the roller coaster, and it's not so much the news that we broke the news. We've done that before. It's what we had to deal with in the process of from a technology standpoint. So obviously, when we reported it and it went we put it on all the social media, and quite naturally, we expected a spike in traffic. Lord knows I didn't expect that type of spike. And I mean, we've been, we are pretty. At least I thought we were pretty solid from a technology standpoint. The servers, we do, several games on Saturdays, and I mean the traffic is pretty intense on Saturdays during the fall season with football games and so forth. And we've been able to manage that without a problem. Needless to say, though, when the news went out and Twitter especially, I mean it went. To just say it went nuts and just bonkers, it wouldn't be doing it justice. There was just obviously nothing that I've ever witnessed with respect to what we had to deal with. I can't tell you the last time HBCU sports had to deal with an outage due to traffic. We hadn't seen anything like that since the early days when we were still the SWAC page, when we were still growing. This was just phenomenal. And to kind of see where all the traffic was coming from various parts of the world that we typically, it's not every day that you get someone, visiting you from, the UAE or from the Philippines and so forth. And it's just constantly coming in. So after 30 minutes after we put the news out there, the computer went down. And it was during that time, after that news was released, we got a call from someone at Jackson State saying, Kenn, can you take the story down? And my response was, why? And they explained that, contract hadn't been signed yet, and that, they still weren't sure if Deion was still the man in the running. Now, I'll admit, it brought us pause a little bit, but then I said, well, okay, but the report isn't that you signed a contract. The report was that you planned on hiring him on Monday, and we were going to stick by that, and we weren't going to take the story down. Just so happens, after that conversation ended, and after getting the new information that I received, was that supposedly the hiccup was related to the shoe contracts, and that Jackson State was a Nike school, and that Deion was with Under Armour. I'm like, surely that couldn't be the reason, and we made some more calls and kind of tried to confirm some things, but for the most part, we were pretty definite that was going to stay. Oh, he went. Now you would go out on me. Okay, Kendrick called me back. So right as that happened, you would go out anyway. So right as that happened, everything went crazy, and Kendrick was going to go ahead and update that story to include the fact that Jackson State had informed us that they were going to, that there was a snag in the so-called the negotiations over the shoe deal, and so we were going to make that update. Only to find out that Kendrick couldn't get into the server because the server crashed and couldn't get to the story. So meanwhile, while he's doing that, I'm on the phone with my tech guys trying to figure out what the hell is going on. How is this happening now? Why is this happening now? It shouldn't be happening. And it was just absolute crazy. So the guy is on the phone and he's trying to make corrections. He's making reboots. I don't know what they do. And he's talking about your SQL database is this, and you got this happening and this one, and he was just looking, and everything he would do, it would reset or whatever, and everything was just jumping. He's like, man, what is going on? It's been a while since I've seen anything like this, and I didn't really want to go into details, but I just said it was a news site, and that a national story was breaking, and that we were responsible for doing it, and that, let's just get this back up and running. And basically, it just got to the point to where the traffic was just so great until he's just saying, I'm doing everything I can. This is going to take longer than we expected, and you're just going to have to give us some time to work on it. So while that happened, we were noticing literally at this point about 80% of the traffic that we were, and it was just, good Lord, just 80% of the traffic was coming in from Twitter. So I was trying to be proactive and thinking, okay, let's, maybe if we remove the tweets By removing the tweets, we could remove the links that would take individuals directly to the website, and that way, maybe some way, somehow, it wouldn't completely terminate the traffic, but maybe reduce it to the point to where Kendrick could get in the server and the IT guys could do whatever it was. I don't know, but it didn't help. Man, call me back. Anyway, it didn't help, and so it was just ongoing. So for whatever reason, once things kind of lighten up, the website is back up, and everything is everything. Unfortunately, some took that as a way. Well, now this new news is coming out, and Jackson State isn't necessarily going to, may not be hiring, and now TC Taylor is the lead person, and so forth. And so, needless to say, credibility shots came with it. And I guess maybe there's a part of me that's grateful, but ultimately that wasn't the case. And it, unfortunately took the reporting of, I guess, some more well-known operations to conclude that Jackson State was indeed going to hire Deion Sanders as head coach. And, given the ties that we had with him, basically indicated that our reporting was indeed correct. That was unfortunate for me in the sense that, a little disheartening in that, it unfortunately took a mainstream outlet for individuals to, I guess, to validate what we were doing, to validate us when it didn't necessarily require that. And as the reports went out, some publication indicated that eventually we took the publication indicated that both of the tweets were removed and that the story had been removed from the website, and that just simply wasn't the case. Almost, and I'm not saying that they said this, but almost trying to imply as if we were wrong in the reporting. And are you back, sir? Let's get you. That's Kendrick. Hold on. We're on live, sir.
I'm sorry about that. My phone.
Hey, man, it's live TV. It's live internet.
Yeah, I got kicked out of my account from Skype, man.
Okay, so let's get your camera back on.
Oh, can you see me?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Straighten yourself out. All right.
Yeah, man. Skype had a malfunction. So,
hey, it's live, man. It's all good, brother. So basically, I was telling them about before you left. I was telling them about the server crashing, what we had to go through, the story that we received from Jackson State about the shoe discrepancy with Jackson State with Nike and Deion with Under Armour, and how that was the snag that was kind of delaying things and so forth. And then, of course, how I made the decision to remove the tweets from Twitter, foolishly thinking that some way, somehow, that was going to reduce the traffic to come into the server, which it didn't. But as a result of that happening, certain outlets took that as a way of thinking that we were wrong in our reporting. And I was just telling them that, and I think you told me, I believe you said it was awful announcing.
Yeah, that's right. They had wrote a story earlier in that evening, kind of chronicling the events of the day, and they mentioned that we had taken our story down and our tweets down after the university denied our reports. And I've tweeted, no, it's because
right.
Folks couldn't access our website to read the story, so it made us to keep the link up there.
Right. And I feel it's important. And again, there's a part of me that I kind of went back and forth saying, I was saying to myself, you know what, I don't think I should have to justify my actions, because if I'm wrong, believe me, I don't have a problem telling you if I'm wrong or if we're wrong about something. Because there are times when we would make errors either in the headline of a story or something that's just not completely right. And I want to make this perfectly clear, and the proof is out there. If we felt we would have been wrong in what we reported, not only would we, keep in mind, I removed those tweets from Twitter. It wasn't because we were wrong. It was, like I said, foolishly thinking that was going to some way, somehow reduce the traffic, remove that link, and people wouldn't be able to just automatically go to the website. Because if I thought I was wrong, I would have not only removed the reports from Twitter, I would have removed them from Facebook, I would have removed them from Instagram and all the other social media platforms that we publish those reports. You will notice that to this very day, they have not been removed. Unfortunately, from Twitter, and I hate I did it, but we removed it and couldn't necessarily put it back. It's not like you can hide it. But those reports and all the other Facebook, everything else is there. And we never removed the story from the website. Nobody could get to the website. You can get to any story on the website. It was down. So I want to make that perfectly clear. And like I said, Kendrick, you didn't hear this, but I granted, Ross, Dellinger at Sports Illustrated, confirmed the reports as well that through their own sourcing that Jackson State was going to hire Deion Sanders. And again, he was kind enough in saying that, obviously Jackson State, as one person said, lied on record. That's not me saying that. That's what that one person said. But basically, it's saying that that the report was correct. And so, but that's another issue. I felt that it was important to make that point clear because I understand that we're small. We cover a very unique niche of the sports world that a whole lot of people. And I take that back. I am going to say something. Because, I'm not necessarily talking about Jackson State here. This has been something that's been going on for as long as we've been doing this. Some of you HBCUs, you don't have a problem with pushing us to the side when we ask for access or to give us a stories. You'll give it to the mainstream outlets before you give it to us. But those mainstream outlets will be the first one to report anything derogatory, negative. They'll take advantage of everything. Meanwhile, those little small stories about the volleyball teams and public service reports and public service stories that you constantly put out that we do for you, you don't see the mainstream publications doing that. So I guess that there's a part of me that says that just wants to make it clear that, don't be so quick to push us to the side. I understand we may not be ESPN or Fox Sports or some of these other big, huge media conglomerates, but, we probably are more of a service to you than you give us credit for. So I just want to make that clear. So that's done. But needless to say, we're back on track and we'll move forward. So Kendrick, let's go back to Deion, because already since this morning, it appears that Prime, he put a tweet out there, I'm looking for some dogs. And it appears that he's already been apparently in recruit mode, because I think you and I, before we started going live here, talked about there were already a number of individuals who actually put out there that they had received interest letters, or that they had received offers, from Jackson State. One of them being a 5-star defensive tackle at Mason Smith out of Terrebonne High School, out of Houma, Louisiana, 6'5", 316, who had already had offers from Alabama, pretty much every SEC school in the conference. And yet he indicated today that he'd received an offer from Jackson State. What are your thoughts about that? And I believe you told me there were like maybe 3 or 4 others who indicated that they received offers from Jackson State.
Yeah, there were 3 or 4 other kids who today posted on their own social media that they have received an offer from Deion Sanders, and we're pretty excited about it. And it's very rare that a coach gets hired and immediately offers start coming and recruits are interested in them. So I think the name Deion Sanders already has carried a lot of weight and has already had some influence on the football program. And if you're associated with Jackson State, you have to be pretty excited about that. He's already making connections, and he hasn't officially started as head coach yet.
Yeah, that's it. It really does say something to something about getting off the getting on the ground and running with it. And granted, the offers are obviously at this point are non-binding, and no one is to my knowledge has actually indicated that they're going to commit. but it does say something. It's a testament to the impact that Deion has already had less than 24 hours after being named the head coach of the school. We got some comments coming in. Let me see. Let's see here. Let's see. Jeff DePlessis. I think you're being a little unrealistic about Coach Prime. I feel his energy and name recognition will go a long way with succeeding. What that success will look like is to be determined. I agree, Jeff. Like I said, he can be wildly successful, or he could be terrible. He could just be terrible. I mean, and it could be somewhere in between. I guess ultimately, I guess there's a part of me that just think that for a man with the stature and the platform that he has, if he proves himself to be worthy of a head coach, somebody's gonna want him, and they're gonna make him an offer that I'm not saying he can't refuse. I know it's easy to say, well, he's not in it. Someone's saying he's not in it for the money. I don't know, but that's just my thought process on that. That again, it remains to be seen. But I will say that we already seeing what the positive impact, and this is short term. Obviously it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to equate to wins and losses. But that remains to be seen. Let me see here. Tut Tillman. His question, Kendrick, is what's the contract? Any idea that's something that hasn't openly been published that I'm aware of? Any idea what Prime's contract might be right now? What we're looking at contract wise with Prime? Any idea?
I'm not certain about any contract details in that regard in terms of money or years, but I know with the last couple of coaches Jackson State has hired, they've been among the highest paid coaches in the conference. So you would think Deion Sanders would be at that level or a little bit above with this contract he's going to sign.
Do you think he could? What? Say that last part again.
I think based on J State's history with how they compensated their coaches, he should be online or above what they've offered coaches in the past. I know, several Jackson State coaches in the last 3 or 4 hiring cycles have been among the highest paid coaches in the entire conference. So it would not surprise me if Deion Sanders is the highest paid coach in the SWAC whenever he signs his contract. Okay.
Well, that's I'm guessing with Jackson State being a public institution, it's just a matter of it shouldn't take too long to get the details on that contract. Tut Tillman, once again, what's it going to take to get you guys set up in different locations on game day? Money. Hey man, you can go to hbcusports.com/donate. You make a donation and that's a start. We can get some remote equipment and we can do something along those lines. I appreciate it, man. That's a great idea. I appreciate it. Let's see here. Dana Jones Stokes. I know her. Great job, HBC Sports. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you for all your support as well. Let's see here. We got another one here from, Mika Lynn. Why is this even up for discussion? Primetime has accepted his position as head coach of Jackson State. Really, Mika? Why is it up for discussion? Mika, what's your affiliation? Are you a Jackson State alum? Or are you alum someplace else? Because if you're a Jackson State alum, what we're doing right now is exactly what Jackson State wants. Because we're not the only one doing it. This is big news. And we aren't doing anything any differently than any other media outlet would over the hire of a head coach. So, I'm sorry, man, but that's why it's up for discussion. It's prime time. It's he's the man of the moment. Kendrick, so we got a little bit more time left. Talk about these last few days in terms of obviously not only and I thought about this especially with you because again, I mean it's hard not to get emotional. You obviously you got a job to do, but and you've already kind of alluded a little bit how this has impact you emotionally, but was there ever a moment that you maybe thought this ain't gonna really happen? I mean, did you ever have doubts, or I mean, what has been your experience over this past week?
It was the Wednesday when we went back and forth through texting about when you said you had heard that Deion was going to be hired by Johnny State, and I heard the same thing, and I was like, this is not possible. Like, we cannot be hearing the same thing because it just doesn't make any sense that the school will move forward with this. I was thinking it from the standpoint of, like, again, like, why would Deion Sanders with his background, with all he's doing right now in sports media, he just signed with Barstool Sports to be a contributor there.
Right.
Like, why would he take this particular job? What does he have to gain by doing this right now? And the only time I really got scared was when you called me and told me about the hang up with Under Armour. I was like, oh my God. Like, because my name is on the byline of the story that says Deion Sanders is going to come to that state. And if this is wrong, like, our credibility is shot forever. I'm thinking. But yeah, like, people who don't do what we do and break news, they don't understand, like, that feeling you have when you know something that nobody else knows and it's big and you're praying to God that people are telling you is right. Because the source is not going to look bad. You're going to look bad because your name is on the story and your story. And I couldn't sleep that Thursday night at all because we didn't know for sure whether or not this was actually going to happen. And I remember texting you on Friday, like, are you having fun yet? And you were like, about what? And I was like, about Monday. And you was like, oh, about that. Because that's when we had reported that the school was going to make the announcement. And then I went on social media and I saw that Sports Illustrated had confirmed the story. And then the Clarion Ledger, which is the newspaper based in Jackson, had confirmed the story too. I felt a little bit better. But being on that limb like that for like 24 hours was hell, man. Because because seriously, like, we're not expecting to, like, break news of that magnitude.
Right.
It's supposed to be ESPN, it's supposed to be Fox Sports, it's supposed to be CBS, it's supposed to be all these other places breaking news, not us.
Right.
And so now we're working from a perspective of, like, this is some website many people have never heard of. How do they know and nobody else knows type thing?
Well, see, I had a conversation with this. Matter of fact, just a couple of days ago with a relative, and that, this is why you need to give websites like ours just a little bit more credibility, because this is what we do in the HBCU space. This is pretty much all we do. If it's something going on in the NFL or the NBA, we don't waste time doing that unless it involves maybe a celebrity, or even a athlete from an HBCU. We'll give that individual coverage or the situation that's related to that individual coverage, but we don't waste time dealing with that because we know that there are other outlets that are better equipped to do it. I told this individual, equate this is kind of like the equivalent to TMZ. In which, at one point they got to, TMZ, I don't know, it was like that first story, TMZ is reporting something. And, what we knew TMZ to be before it became the TMZ that we know now, and I guess we have a little bit more respect for, say what you will about it, but, TMZ was just like, when it came to celebrities, bam, bam, just constantly getting it right, just constantly getting it. And before you know it, it got to the point to where if TMZ said it was happening, it was happening. Or if TMZ said it happened, it happened. And unfortunately, TMZ, I believe, was first to report that Kobe Bryant was killed in that helicopter crash. And the unfortunate thing about that was, his wife, I believe, if I understand correctly, his wife had to find out through TMZ's reporting as opposed to maybe finding out from, law enforcement. And, you know, you say what you will, and people got on TMZ for saying it, but my response is that still doesn't make it any less true. What TMZ reported was indeed true. And I don't say that to be insensitive, because TMZ got that information obviously from somebody in law enforcement, when law enforcement probably had the obligation to inform the relatives before anyone else knew about it. But this is pretty much that same thing. You know, we knew what was going to happen. You know, the speculation of it happened. I would just put it like this. You know, there are a lot of things that you and I are privy to that we are either sworn not to tell or talk about, at least publicly anyway. There are so many things that you guys have no idea, you know, that we would love to report, arguments that took place between coaches, things that were said. I can't tell you the countless email that I get from parents and students wanting to out coaches for various things that you'd be surprised what it's like on this end of the world, you know, on this end of the spectrum, that, you know, this is what we do, you know, and so that's what it is. So the comments are coming in. I want to see, is it Mika? Mika says this was already in the making before it hit the public. Mika, who are you with? Who do you represent? I don't know if you pro JSU or anti JSU or what. Because, okay, you say it was already in the making. I mean, okay, something could have gone wrong. There have been instances when there have probably been some times I can't think of anything right off the bat, but people who intend to hire one coach and can't hire that coach because that coach got an offer to stay at his school and he's decided he's going to stay. I think we've seen that happen a couple of times, you know. So, you know, I think was it Lane Kiffin? Lane Kiffin was supposed to coach at Tennessee.
No, it was actually Les Miles. He was supposed to coach in Michigan, and then it was reported he had agreed to coach Michigan.
That's okay. Was it? Then LSU found out. Right.
And like more money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But wasn't there a situation with Lane Kiffin though? Was he at Tennessee for like a year or sure? It was something, but he bolted. It was something,
Yeah,
but
he went from Tennessee to USC.
right. That's what it was. So, you know, these things happen, Mika. I mean, I'm sorry if it's not to your liking, but you know, it's just something that we've got to report. Let's see here. Sylvester Taylor, several offers extended based upon the Twitter post I've seen. Yeah. Kendrick, did you have those names of the recruits? Yeah. We talked about Mason Smith, 6'5", 316 out of Terrebonne High School, Houma, Louisiana. Already received 5-star defensive tackle. Already received recruits to Alabama, Auburn. I mean, name every SEC school in the country. He's already received offers from those schools, and yet he announced today that he received a offer from Jackson State. What were the other names?
Yeah, there's a kid named DeHaan Warren who is the #1 junior college cornerback in the country who's committed to Georgia already. Apparently Sanders offered that kid. Mm-hmm. There's another JUCO defensive end who's committed to West Virginia named Nigel McGriff. The #2 JUCO linebacker, Navon Quez Strong, he's has a verbal commitment to Mississippi State, and there's a JUCO kid, Jamie White. He's offered defensive tackle Lamarcus Faulkner, another JUCO kid, Rashad Lyles, and another a high school guy, Andreas Keaton.
Okay.
That they've all been offered so far by
wow.
Anderson Company.
Damn. Wow. That's just today. And so I guess there's a part of you that kind of thinks that he made, obviously, I think it's safe to say he's not going to get all of them. But if he's throwing that out there, and I guess if he can get at least, I don't know, 2, 3, or 4 of them, that, those so-called 3, 4, and 5-star athletes, that's a pretty good class. More questions. Let's see. Who is this? D. Rashad. Oh, the lovely D. Rashad. If he is successful, do you think it will increase top high school players going to SWAC schools? Sweetie, one could only hope so. One can only hope so. You know what? You can even look at now. I will, like I said, to his credit, and like I said, while I may have my doubts about him in terms of what he might do as a actual head coach, I did listen. I took the time to listen to Prime's speech earlier today, and and I'm paraphrasing here, but I think he made it pretty clear that given all that we've kind of experienced with, social uprising and social injustice and the impact, and how Black America has been impacted by all of this. And now that we see this sudden interest in students and student athletes wanting to attend HBCUs and so forth, to his credit, Deion Sanders tends to, kind of represents those high caliber celebrities, and he is a celebrity who, I'm not going to sit up here and question, because I'm going to be honest with you, he sounded really sincere during his speech today. Like I said, he hit all the right tones, he hit all the right notes, and I left when that conference was over. I had a pretty good feeling about what his intent. So I mean, he may very well mean well, and I have absolutely no doubt that he will do the very best that he can. It's just simply a matter of, again, whether or not it results in wins and losses. But to his credit, to make the move to go to an HBCU, and I understand you can say he doesn't have any coaching experience. He doesn't necessarily, there's some who kind of said, well, why would Jackson State take this chance? Nobody else, no other mainstream or PWI is taking this chance with Deion Sanders. But the fact that he's willing, that Jackson State offered and he accepted, and that he's willing to take the step given his status, I think that speaks volumes to at least, not necessarily just talking about it, but being about it. Because we've seen a lot of celebrities, and I'm gonna tell you this now. So while we're on it, because I think there's been a lot of unfair pressure with a lot of some of these student athletes who I think for some reason or another, now they kind of feel like I think there's a sense of obligation. They think they feel obligated to want to have to consider an HBCU when initially the HBCU probably wasn't on their top list, or wasn't among their schools to consider going forward. And I think there's something to be said for awareness, and it's good that they would consider it. But I guess there's a part of me that thinks, if they're not really into it, don't do it. Because I'm gonna just tell you now, and guys, you feel free to agree with me or disagree if you want. But every Black student, believe it or not, doesn't have I just don't think every Black student has the mindset or can deal with an HBCU. Everybody, it takes you have to really want to be there first and foremost. And if you think you only want to go simply because you think someone wants you to go, or you feel you have an obligation to someone else other than yourself to go, I say don't do it, because the experience won't be a good one for you. Could be wrong, but that's just my thought process. So to answer your question, dear, one could only hope that this could very well lead to an increase or an influx of student athletes attending HBCUs. One could only hope. Let's see. Tut Tillman, let me see. What are you saying there? See, I thought JSU was in a little financial hardship from my understanding. You know what? Tut, I guess the same could be said for just about every HBCU out there. I don't know. I'm not going to sit up here and say I pretend to know all the ins and outs about Jackson State and its financial situation. I think that an argument could be made in some form or fashion with every HBCU out there. It's a public institution. I think it's safe to say all public institutions aren't in the same situation. They're governed differently. They're in different states. They're operated differently. And who's to say? I don't know enough about their financial situation to comment on it without, I just wouldn't say. Jeff Duplessis, what $400,000? I'm thinking, Kendrick, can you see Jackson State paying Jeff Duplessis? Can you see Jackson State paying Deion Sanders $400,000?
I don't think he's going to be paid that much money. I think somewhere around the 250, mid $300,000 range. Or
What?
possibly,
You think 250 what? To 300?
Yeah. Because that's what they paid previous coaches.
Right. Well,
somewhere in that range.
I don't think it'll be 400,000. I'm thinking, this is guess that salary, huh? There's a part of me that thinks it'll be somewhere between 3 and 350. There's a part of it. Look, I'm not in a man's pocket, but there's a part of me that just says, "Baby, I'm prime. I'm worth the wait, baby. I'm gonna put butts in the seats. I'm gonna bring some dogs to the field. I'm prime, baby. You just got to I'm gonna bring you Cadillacs. I'm not gonna bring you Buicks. You gotta pay me a little more than that, baby. Make it worth your while and mine. This is prime time, baby." So I don't know, Jeff. I don't know if I can say 400,000. Kendrick, I think 250 is a little low. Maybe maybe he's not in it for the money. That song must be the money. I think 300 to 350. I think that's a happy medium. Who's to say?
Yeah, I mean, like you might get some incentives that can boost their contract up a few more dollars.
Right. Let's see. So, Sylvester Taylor, the economic impact to the university and the city will be tremendous. Alumni are booking trips as we speak. I believe it. And you know what? And Sylvester, that should be the case. Look, there is absolutely no reason. And I don't ever recall. Maybe there probably been some exceptions. When a school announces the hiring of a new coach, there should be some level of enthusiasm. Obviously, what remains to be seen from that point. We never know until it actually happens. But Jackson State folks have every reason to be excited about Deion Sanders coming to Jackson State. Every reason, because again, like I said, it hasn't even been 24 hours, and we already have seen the impact that he's had. And here's what this is a trick too. I'm not gonna say I shouldn't say a trick, but this is I'll never forget when Doug Williams was the head coach at Grambling. I'll never forget. I was in Dallas covering the press conference, the State Fair Classic, the annual State Fair Classic at City Hall here in Dallas. And I'll never forget, he was talking to I think it was Willis Johnson, who was a well-respected former radio announcer here in the area. And his son, eventually, Willis Johnson, I think it's DJ Johnson, ended up playing football at Texas and played at Grand Prairie High School, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll never forget overhearing that conversation that he had with Willis Johnson, the father, basically stating, look, and I heard him say this, and I thought it's a trick. If he's not going to commit to Grambling, at least tell him to tell the media that he's considering Grambling, because at that point, at the very least, if they think he's considering Grambling, then other high school student athletes might consider it as well. And, so I guess if nothing else, when you look at these 4- and 5-star athletes considering Jackson State, who's to say that wouldn't be to some degree a certain level of influence that may want them to consider going to Jackson State, and if not Jackson State, some other HBCU.
Yeah, that's true. When McCure Maker decided to commit to Howard this summer, you start hearing about other high school basketball players jumping on board saying we need to go to Howard, we need to go to HBCUs to keep this movement going. So there is something to be said for that. Even if a kid doesn't commit to a HBCU, if he has an HBCU in his top 5 or his top 10 or his top 6 or whatever, it can possibly influence other athletes to make that same consideration.
Okay. Let me see. Mika, why Primetime has accepted position? Let's encourage him as an HBCU. All right, Mika. Jackson State, congratulations. You got Primetime Sanders as your head coach. Is that good enough for you, Mika? It's all love, sweetie. Look. We don't mean any disrespect. I am happy for Jackson State. I think I don't know if you heard me earlier. I said that I am genuinely happy for Jackson State. I want you guys to turn the corner. I do no longer. I no longer want you guys to be struggling. Jackson State is one of the most historic brands in this conference and in HBCU. In HBCU athletics, I want you guys to thrive. Grambling is still going to kick your ass, but I want you guys to thrive. All right? Is that we good, Mika? All right. Let me see. Who else have we got here? Let's see. John Dabney. What's up with the dude in 1876? Kendrick, I believe he's referring to your hat. What's up with the 1876 cap?
Okay. I'm a big Chicago Cubs fan. 1876 is the year the franchise was founded. So that's why it has that year on it.
Okay. 1876. All right, John. Hope that answers your question. Let me see. Let's kind of go rapid fire here because we're going to wind this up in the next few minutes. See, will Deion Sanders have on the job? Will have on the job training? Who's going to show him the ropes? I don't know. I mean, it's obviously on the job training. He's never had a head coaching job before at the collegiate level, so that remains to be seen. But you know, it's going to be tough. Tut Tillman says, "I really thought TC had the job." You know what? I'm getting some. You know what? We might be filing a report probably the next day or two because we've actually come across the name of some possible coaches that'll be joining Prime on his staff. TC, from what I understand, is still on the coaching. Is still on the staff. My understanding before, and I'm reporting that it's my understanding that no matter what the case would have been, because TC was interim. But no matter what was going to happen, TC was going to remain at Jackson State regardless. So I took that to mean that even if Prime came in and said, you know what, I want to clean the slate, it was my understanding that no matter what, TC Taylor was going to stay on in some capacity on the coaching staff at Jackson State. My man, Michael Jones, will JSU give him the time to build a program, or do they think this is a quick fix? Kendrick, what do you say to that? Will J State give him the appropriate time to build a winning program?
I don't think you hired Deion Sanders for this to be just a quick rendezvous. I think you hired Deion Sanders to give him opportunity to build a program over a 4 or 5 year period. I mean, it all depends on the progress. If they're progressing in the right direction, then yeah, they're gonna be patient with him. But like, if Deion Sanders gets off to a poor start and it continues that way, they're obviously gonna re-examine things. But I don't think you hired Deion Sanders for this to be a short-term thing. Now, a lot of that may have to do with Deion Sanders himself, of like what his goals, aspirations are. But from a school standpoint, I don't think you go after a guy like him and want to make a short-term investment in him.
You know what? And from the way he sounded, I mean, he didn't necessarily give the impression that he was going to make this he wants to win now, and I guess any coach would say that, but he made it pretty adamant that he was, the way it made, we're going to turn it around this year. Bree Williams, let me see. Deion's impact on football alone got him the job. His resume as a winner and a Hall of Famer got him the job. Seems like some don't really know him that well. They're about to find out whether it's good or bad. Nothing negative. Bree, I agree. I think that's pretty much the sentiment of all. I mean, how well Deion does remains to be seen at this point. I can't argue with that point. My man, Fred Batiste. Herb Street broke. Let me see. What's this? Herb Street broke the miles to Michigan thing. Was it? I guess so. When I guess the Big Ten ties that were about Miles going to Michigan. You aware of that, Kendrick, of who broke that? The details of that. I guess he's saying Kurt Herbstreit.
I don't remember Herbstreit breaking it. I remember it was a party he was going to Michigan, and then like a couple of days later, he had to reverse course because I know he was asked about it after the. I think it was at the SEC title game,
Mm-hmm.
had just beaten Tennessee. And some reporter asked him about a report that said he was going to Michigan, and he denied it happened. And then, like, you hear about it like a week later, like, oh, Michigan had an offer in place for Les Miles, but because he was asked that question, because the report came out, he backed out of it.
Right, right. Charles A. Smith, I'm a Tugalooan and Jacksonian. He graduated from Talladega in Alabama, not Tougaloo. Duly noted, brother. Hold me accountable, because I did say Tougaloo. You are absolutely correct. It was Talladega. So, Charles Smith, thank you for setting the record straight. I stand corrected. More comments. Let's see, James E. Willis. If Prime starts getting 5-star players, look out. Just what is needed to flip the tide. Okay. Yeah. 5. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like I said, if today is any indication of what we could see during the recruiting season, and again, those offers are non-binding. The players haven't made any commitments. We just don't know what's going to happen. But if he's fortunate enough to get some of those players, and if they're impact players, you can say, job well done.
It was kind of interesting to hear Deion Sanders today's talk and say he wanted athletes who wanted to play on Sunday. And that's pretty rare to hear from a coach at this level, to say, like, he want to recruit guys who have aspirations to go to the NFL. And as you well know, like, a lot of kids who end up in the SWAC and the MEAC and other places and lower levels of college football, coaches aren't targeting those type of athletes. They're targeting guys who they know they can get, where they can develop into hopefully going to the NFL, but not from day one saying, like, we want a 5-star FBS caliber football player. And that's something I think we should watch for. And already, as we mentioned before, these offers are already made to kids who have Power 5 schools already on their lists. So it's going to be see how this develops in the coming months, but before the season starts.
Okay, so we got a few more. Well, Mika, you were just on me today. Let me see what. He's already agreed to it, so he has a plan. Okay, Mika. Okay, and she says something else. I'm sorry. So, are you discouraging those that are athletes to not attend HBCU? Mika, how did you come? How did I give you that impression? What did I do to you? What? I'm not saying that. I'm not. I would love every African American athlete to come to any HBCU of his choice. I am not saying that at all. No. I'm just simply saying that a person shouldn't feel obligated to go to an HBCU if they don't want to go. I guess the same could be said for anything. You shouldn't go to any school that you don't want to go. It doesn't have to be an HBCU. You shouldn't feel obligated. But my point is that given where we are right now, there are a lot of individuals, student athletes, students who feel the need, or maybe they're having a coming to Jesus moment. They're thinking and say, you know what? Whereas I didn't think of going to an HBCU at one point, I think maybe I should consider going to one now. And all I'm saying is that, look, I don't know how your HBCU experience was. All I can say, I can only go by mine. And there have been some who. And this is with any school. You go to a school, you get there, maybe for a semester or a year, you realize this isn't for me. Every school isn't for everybody. And I'll even go so far as to say that whereas one may go to one HBCU, the other one, it may not. Yeah, I'm just going to go to another one, and it may work out. I know people who've actually experienced that. So no, I am not in any way trying to discourage any student from going to HBCUs. Please don't take it that way. I am very pro HBCU. Believe me that. Believe me. Let me see. Last one. And Kendrick, we're going to go ahead and let's see what's this. Yolanda Barnes Jones. This video keeps freezing. I'm out. Contact your internet provider, ma'am. I'm still here. Kendrick, man, look, thank you so much for taking the moment to meet with us, to talk to us about this historic day and what, without question, has been a very historic week not only for Jackson State, not only for HBCUs in general, but for HBCU sports, for your career and mine. And we'll just continue to get the grind on and continue to report the news whenever and wherever it needs to be reported. Thank you, sir. Folks, by all means, once again, follow us on the social media platforms. Follow us on Twitter at HBCU Sports, on Facebook at Real HBCU Sports, on Instagram at HBCU_sports. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. And by all means, go to hbcusports.com/donate and make a donation, because we need a new server. Not just play. We do need a new server though, but we're getting that taken care of. But again, thank you, folks. We will see you next time. Kendrick, have a good night, and thank you once again, sir.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, guys, we're out.